Good evening, boys and ghouls. That rattled me bones! It's Kevin here from Happy Beard Games, and for all October long, Gametober on my channel, we're switching over to horror theme for all month long. So we've got horror games, we've got some horror collectibles, we've got other things scattered throughout the month that are horror related. If you want more information on that, check out the Gametober intro video. This is the 8th year of Gametober on my channel. And me and Sally the Skeleton right here are going to have a little dance-off, apparently. No, we're going to talk about today's game. Today's game is a series that I'm starting for this month of October, Gametober only. And they're going to be quick plays for each game, which is kind of crazy. You might be thinking to yourself, once I introduce the game, how can you do a quick play of a series that's this long and so story-driven? Well, the series that I'm talking about is Legacy of Kain series. I have all the games. There's 5 games in total. The very first game is the one we're playing today, very first, which is called Blood Omen. There's also a sequel called Blood Omen 2, and then there's another series. This game's story is so crazy and intricate and great and well written that the way the game's story is, if I can explain it in like a really brief, simple sense, is that there's a game, and then there's another game that's like a spin-off, but they also intertwine the stories together, and that spin-off is called Soul Reaver. And in some ways, Soul Reaver is more popular than Blood Omen, which was the original, but they're both part of the Legacy of Kain series or franchise, the same story. The first game that we're playing today introduces us to the character of Kain, who is a vampire, but he's not a vampire at the very beginning, but he will be shortly into the gameplay. And then eventually in later games such as Blood Omen 2, he's an elder vampire, and he's sort of an antagonist slash mentor in a way, if you can imagine those both being the same person, to the character Raziel from Soul Reaver. And then in Soul Reaver, there's also Soul Reaver 2. Now these characters both meet up again in the final game in the series, Legacy of Kain Defiance, which I don't know too much about this series, but I do know the basic story, and I've played some of the games to quite an extent. And I've known about them for a very long time, since they first came out on the PlayStation, the Dreamcast, and you're going to notice that on this video, my games are scattered throughout consoles. I don't have all of them on the physical versions, but a couple that I do have are these ones. So I've got the very first game, Blood Omen, on the PlayStation 3, and if you want to talk about dead things, check out the PlayStation Network store for the PS3. That's a graveyard. There is like not very many games left on there really, especially if you're looking at the PS1 classic titles and the PS2 classic titles. They took off a lot. People talk about it online as like the PS3 store is going down and stuff like that, but they took off a lot. It's not down. I can still download it. I just bought these games a week ago. So we're playing Blood Omen on the PlayStation 3 console. We're also playing Soul Reaver on the PlayStation 3 console. That's a PS1 classic for both of those. So you can still check those out today on the PlayStation 3 store if you have a PS3. Additionally, we're playing Blood Omen 2 on the Nintendo GameCube. Kind of an odd choice for me on the GameCube. It's just a game that people don't think about when they think of GameCube games, or even mature games on the GameCube. No one really brings up Blood Omen 2, but yes, it's on the GameCube. For the next game, Soul Reaver 2, I don't have that one, so I have it on Steam. So we're playing the PC version of Soul Reaver 2, once again switching up the consoles. I do want to point out that Soul Reaver 1 was also released on the Sega Dreamcast, so if I do ever get Soul Reaver on physical, I'll get it on the Dreamcast. That's actually where I played it first. And then for the final game, Legacy of Kain Defiance, I have it on the original Xbox, which is a really cool way to play Defiance, I would say. But I don't have enough time to do a review of every single game in the series because there's 5 games, and they seem like they're kind of long. They're definitely deep and intricate in their stories, and the gameplay is interesting to me as well. And the characters are great. So I'm only able to do a review of one of them this month, because there's other things I have to do too. So we're going to do a quick play of these. So how can you do a quick play? This is going to be my first impressions. Even though I've already, played these in the past, these are my first impressions revisiting these games in an adult life. I played them as a kid, but I haven't played them in a long time. So these games, they're nostalgic to me. They're not quite as nostalgic as like NES and Super Nintendo because they came out later, but they're still interesting for me to talk about. I do have nostalgia for the Legacy of Kain series. So with these videos, they'll be shorter, they won't be reviews, but they'll be kind of like a quick play, kind of like a just me talking about my ideas about the game overall, and you'll see that with each installment of the series. And then I'm going to try to get a Blood Omen review for the very first game specifically later on, but we're also going to do a quick play of Blood Omen, so keep that in mind. That's how it's going to go. And then there is another game in this series, actually. It's called Nosgoth. It was an online arena game, and I think it's defunct. I don't think it exists anymore. I played it like once. It was for PC only. It was an online arena game featuring vampires from Legacy of Kain, but I don't think it actually featured Kain or Raziel. It just had some references, like the name Nosgoth is featured in the game series.